What is good, everyone? You know we're in the heart of it. You know we're deep in the cut of this offseason because it's all-time roster building. That's the topic. That's the segment of the day. You know we're in the dog days of summer when your content is at that point, you know? But here's the thing. I wouldn't have it any other way on this fine Thursday. This is what I want to be talking about. Steelers, all-time roster, because we have some current players on this 2024 roster that, I think we're starting to have conversations. I think there's real debates on whether or not they should be included in, the Steelers, all-time greats. That list, that conversation. Should they be on the all-time starting roster? And you guys could probably guess what players I'm thinking of right now. But, yeah, we're going to talk about it. We're going to debate it. We're going to go back and forth about it. So the ask for today's episode was, to build out an all-time starting, 22 for the Steelers. We're not going to go through all 53. We're trying to go starting 11 on offense, starting 11 on defense. And I took it a step further and was imagining a scenario where the Steelers would have to construct a team to go up against some alien form that's coming down, that's trying to battle Earth. So the Steelers are being asked to put together the best team that we can to compete with this alien species and save the Earth. What squad am I putting together tomorrow if that situation happened? Almost like in Space Jam with the Monstars, but think of it in football terms and with the Steelers. What's the best squad that we could put together to save the Earth? Let's just say save the city of Pittsburgh. We'll do that. We'll keep it even smaller than saving the Earth. But that's the approach I took with it, because I think you can interchange some of these players if you're taking it from a perspective of a Steelers museum or a Steelers all-time legacy standpoint, if you get what I mean. So from the lens of we need to put together the best squad possible tomorrow to save the city of Pittsburgh from an alien species that's trying to take over the city tomorrow. Who are we putting on that field? What's the squad looking like? So that's what I'm going with. That's going to be my 22 starters on offense and defense. And there's going to be crossover. There's going to be a lot of names on here that you are putting at the top of the Steelers museum for their respective positions and just all-time legacy rankings and stuff like that. But yeah. I'm also taking it a step further and just being game for our lives, city of Pittsburgh on the line. Who are we going with? Who do we need out there? So my first name, we got to start with quarterback. It's the most important position, right? When we say the name Kenny Pickett, what adjective is synonymous? That's clutch, right? Game-winning drives. Fourth quarter comebacks. So you mean to tell me we're going up against some aliens and the city's on the line? Who do we want? We want Mr. Clutch. We want KP8, right? Think of his rookie year, man. Backs up against the wall. We're 2-6 after the bye week. We go on a 7-2 run. Ravens on the road, 2 minutes left. We need a touchdown. KP8 comes through. Game-winning pass to Najee Harris, corner of the end zone. The Franco Harris game. The Franco Harris immaculate reception anniversary game. Still, our playoff lives are on the line. It must-win game for the Steelers to make the playoffs. It's negative 30 degrees. I was there. My face was burnt red from how cold it was. It was so cool. I think I had like icicles dripping from my nose. It was freezing. But if you want to make a name for yourself in Steelers lore, like you got to win on Franco Harris Day. With just him passing a few days before, too. We were going to celebrate, and we did celebrate Franco Harris's career by retiring his jersey number, but he was supposed to be there. He passed away a few days before that. Like, you can't lose that game. You can't lose that game. So if we need a win, we got to go with Kenny Pickett, right? Come on. We got to go with KP8. His first 2 years, I think he was, second in the league in game-winning drives, fourth quarter comebacks. He had 7 or 8 of them. And how many starts with the Steelers? It was like a total of 20-something starts. He had 7 or 8 fourth quarter comebacks, game-winning drives. Nah, come on now. I'm messing. Come on. I can't do that. Come on. I'm messing. I'm messing. No, here's the squad. Here's the squad right here. For offense. We'll go offense first, then we'll go defense. I just want to see what you guys were saying. I bet you at least half of you were believing me there. I think half of you. Some of you know I was trolling. Craig Ellis says, you're clearly trolling. Jay Smokin says, I figured. Michael Romanowski said, Ben had the clutch play in the Super Bowl. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, come on. Ben did it on the biggest of stages. Ben is stamped. Ben has 2 Super Bowls. K9S says he would have chosen Mitch over Kenny. Now, that's a lie. That's a terrible take. Absolutely terrible take. Jay Smokin says, no way. Z Straight 23 says, why are you trolling? I can't believe I made it through all of that Kenny Pickett talk without even like laughing or anything. Did I have a smirk? I might have had a little bit of a smirk, but I thought I kept a pretty straight face. I was pretty deadpan there. I think like half of you guys believe me. I want to say half of you believe me. But the quarterback is obviously Ben Roethlisberger. It's Big Ben. So some of the comments you can see as your chat's popping up on the screen, it's going over the right tackle, but that right tackle was Tunch Ilkin. So at quarterback, I'm just going to go down the line and explain the reasoning for each player at each position. So with Big Ben, the GOAT, the greatest QB in Steelers history, it's as simple as that. And no disrespect to Terry Bradshaw, because we all love Terry Bradshaw. He was one of the godfathers of this whole Steelers thing and like what the organization means and the legacy and all that. He's one of those dudes. But Big Ben's that guy. He's the best quarterback. He's better than Terry Bradshaw. He holds all the Steelers records for passing and quarterback play and all that. But this dude, and this is one of the things, is you could bring this up with Bradshaw, right? You could say, oh, Bradshaw, he's got more rings. He's got the 4 rings. But Big Ben, like, he was that guy for this Steelers era over the last 18 years. Like, he was that dude. He was that guy that kept us relevant no matter what players we threw out there on offense and defense. How many receiver groups did we go through with Big Ben? How many changes on defense did we go through with Big Ben? It didn't matter. We always had a chance when you had Big Ben out there. So with Bradshaw, I get it. He had the rings. He had the 4 Super Bowls. He had all that. But he had, I think up to this point with Donnie Shell getting in, he had 9 Hall of Famers surrounding him throughout that whole stretch. Like, that's who he was surrounded with. And it was those players, those same players through all those Super Bowls throughout the whole 70s. Whereas Big Ben, he never had more than 2 Hall of Famers on his team at a given time. Now, if you want to say he had Bettis in his rookie year with Faneca and Polamalu, There's 3, but that was Bettis on the back half. Outside of that rookie year, Ben never had more than 2 players, or I guess even his second year, but Bettis was even worse in Ben's second year. I think Bettis only had like 300 yards in 2005, 2006 when we won the Super Bowl. So like that wasn't prime Bettis. That wasn't what got Bettis in the Hall of Fame like those last 2 seasons. So outside of that, Ben never had more than 2 Hall of Famers on his team for the rest of those 16 seasons. Whereas Terry Bradshaw had 9 Hall of Famers, could even at this point be 10. LC Greenwood, he should probably be in the Hall of Fame. Like he had a ton of dudes around him. Again, no disrespect to Terry Bradshaw, but Big Ben was that guy. If you want to talk about being clutch and needing to win and all that stuff, like that is what goes synonymous with Ben Roethlisberger being clutch. Like the game-winning drives and all that stuff that we got to witness throughout his career and on the biggest stages in Super Bowls. The greatest drive in not only Super Bowl history, just NFL history happened Super Bowl 43. The greatest throw in NFL history happened during that Super Bowl as well. The one in the back of the end zone of Santonio Holmes. Like, yeah, Big Ben, he's on this team. He's the starting quarterback. Now at running back, okay, I was struggling with this one. My knee-jerk reaction was to put Le'Veon Bell there because I think Le'Veon Bell has the best individual season to his name for a running back. If you're looking at all the Steelers RBs throughout our history, like I think he has the best peak out of all the running backs that we got. The problem with him was he wasn't a Steeler for too long, and injuries derailed his career a little bit here, and also suspensions. And then the contract holdout, he goes to the Jets, and that's where his career went to die. So that's the tough part with him. If we're talking Steelers Museum, Steelers legacy, all that, I don't think Bell's in the top 2. It's Franco Harris and Jerome Bettis. And then I think you're having a conversation between Willie Parker and Le'Veon Bell. But for one game, I think Le'Veon Bell was a Steeler long enough, and we did get to see enough of him where I think he's in the conversation in this scenario. But I did more due diligence. I think I came to my senses. It's still Franco Harris. It's got to be Franco. Dude was a Super Bowl MVP, a 9-time Pro Bowler, All-Pro, Hall of Famer, part of the all 1970s decade team. Like, it's Franco Harris, man. Like, this dude not only did it season in, season out, and if you ask those dudes from the 70s, if you ask Steeler fans from the 70s, they say Franco Harris was the catalyst. There is a reason we retired his number just a few years ago. There's only 3 dudes that have their jersey number retired, and Franco Harris is one of them. A Super Bowl MVP. Like, look at his playoff game logs. He stepped up in the playoffs. So if we're talking about this scenario, one game tomorrow, lives on the line, I can trust Franco Harris. Le'Veon Bell, I do think, was the most talented running back that came through the organization. But let's give credit where credit is due and have Franco Harris out there for this game because he's going to step up. He's clutch in his own right. Super Bowl MVP. Like, yeah. Franco Harris. It's Franco Harris. Franco Harris. Other names you, I guess, could consider Jerome Bettis. I mentioned him. Le'Veon Bell. John Henry Johnson. He was a dude from like the 50s and 60s. He's in the Hall of Fame. You got Barry Foster. He's kind of like a Le'Veon Bell. He had one season where he was in like MVP conversations, like went off, had like 1,600 yards in the 90s. But his career wasn't like long-lasting, as long-lasting as some of these other guys like a Franco Harris or Jerome Bettis. And then Willie Parker. We know he had the longest run in Super Bowl history back for Super Bowl 40. Was a really nice running back for us during the early Big Ben era. So starting QB, starting running back, it's Big Ben and then Franco Harris. At receiver, Antonio Brown. At wide receiver 1, we'll say Antonio Brown. I think he's the greatest receiver in Steelers history. Arguably a top 5 receiver of all time. Was the best receiver in the league for like a 5-6 season stretch in those like mid-teens, like from 2013 to 2018. And if 7's the quarterback, you got to have his running mate out there. You got to have 8-4 as the wide receiver 1 for that Wi-Fi. I think that's a no-brainer. Now, going to the whole Steelers museum or Steelers legacy standpoint, do you have some other guys over AB because of how AB's tenure here in Pittsburgh ended? Maybe. I wouldn't. I think Antonio Brown is the greatest receiver in Steelers history. So I would actually still have him number 1 from a Steelers museum standpoint. But also, obviously, or from the perspective that I'm talking about here, where we need one game and we need to get our best team together possible. I'm going with AB as wide receiver 1. At wide receiver 2, Lynn Swann. Like Franco Harris, a position player that has a Super Bowl MVP, Hall of Famer, 4-time Super Bowl champ, part of that old 1970s decade team. A big game player, but also I think what he brings to the table that makes a lot of sense for this team and this wide receiver core here is that he's a great down the field threat, like big time circuits catch type of dude, like George Pickens before George Pickens, like the 1970s version of George Pickens. So he's the perfect wide receiver for 7 to chuck the ball down the field to. You got AB, you got that guy that if you're in a pinch, you throw the ball to no matter where he is, always open. But then on the other side of the field, you got Lynn Swann, the deep threat, circus catch type of dude. So now we need our slot guy. And I think the obvious answer here is Hines Ward. We got another Super Bowl MVP. We got 3 Super Bowl MVPs. I'm going to say 4 Super Bowl MVPs out of these top 5 players that I've already listed because Big Ben was snubbed of the Super Bowl MVP in Super Bowl 43. But you got Hines Ward, another Super Bowl MVP we're adding to this list. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. I think we're all in agreement there. And if you're as old as me, he's the iconic Steelers receiver that you think of whenever you're talking about 2000s Steelers football. He's perfect for the slot, one of, if not one of the best blocking receivers of all time. And he'll work on the inside, make all the tough catches, is physical as hell. I think he's perfect for this squad. Other names to consider. Santonio Holmes, another Super Bowl MVP. John Stallworth. Like, these dudes are making the squad for sure. Like, our wide receiver 4 would be Santonio Holmes, or wide receiver 5. Wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 would be John Stallworth. Like, those 2 names we're adding. A Yancey Thigpen, he was a really solid receiver. Is it too early to be talking about George Pickens? Just making the roster. He's not in the starting 3, but making the roster in this scenario, we need our best, most talented players, guys we know that are going to step up. Like, I think GP, I don't think it would be too crazy to be talking about him right now. But then if he has a baller season for 2024, then yeah. Pickens might find his name in this, like, mix here. Because we know he's talented as hell. We know he's got all the potential. You just got to do it more and do it on a consistent basis. That's all. But yeah, in terms of just like putting your best and most talented players out there, Pickens, hey, watch out. At tight end, Heath Miller, I don't even think this is a conversation. He's the best tight end in Steelers history. Other names that people would probably like to have mentioned as like an honorable mention would be like Eric Green, our 90s tight end, and Benny Cunningham. He was the tight end in the 70s with all those Super Bowls. But I don't think they're as good as Heath Miller, flat out. Both legacy and just as a player, they're just not as good as Heath Miller. He's the best tight end in Steelers history. Now, O-line, this one was tough. The O-line was really tough because I think I have it right here. The only problem is we have so many damn good centers. So you're probably asking, where is Marquise Pouncey? But I can't put Marquise Pouncey over Mike Webster, who is the greatest center in NFL history. And then Dermontti Dawson, he's another Hall of Fame center that the Steelers have. He was like what, late 80s, like into the 90s, right? Dermontti Dawson, or mid 80s maybe, mid 80s into the 90s. Hall of Fame center. But they're not as good as Mike Webster. So I was thinking, could we bump them to guard? Could we bump Marquise Pouncey or Dermontti Dawson to guard? But we have a Hall of Fame left guard in Alan Faneca and then a borderline Hall of Fame right guard in David DeCastro. So it's tough. I can't take a guy out of position and put them over 2 dudes that were amazing at the positions that they actually played and were trying to slot in for this starting roster. Left tackle, John Cole, he was protecting Terry Bradshaw's blindside in 1970s. Really good left tackle. So that's a safe call there. Right tackle was up for debate. Tunch Ilkin. You could talk about Larry Brown. He was like the right tackle in the 70s, but he started half of his career as a tight end and was right tackle for the latter 2 Super Bowls in the 1970s. He made a Pro Bowl, but Tunch Ilkin has 2 Pro Bowls, has the most starts out of any right tackle in Steelers history at that position. Marvel Smith would be another name that you could throw in the mix. He's got a Pro Bowl, was our steady right tackle in the late 90s into the 2000s. So I think Tunch Ilkin's the right answer there, but I think you can have a conversation between those 3 names. Offense, though, what are you guys thinking? Ooh, this is a good name. Josh Wade, 16, brings up Plexico Burress. That is a good name for like a one-game scenario. That's not bad. But still, I got AB, Lynn Swann, and Hines Ward. I'm still taking all them over Plexico Burress. I'm taking Holmes over Plexico still, even like a John Stallworth. I think that's the top 5. I think that has to be the top 5. AB, Lynn Swann, Hines Ward. And then for wide receiver 4, John Stallworth. Wide receiver 5, Santonio Holmes. And if we're keeping 6 receivers, yeah, that's when you can have like a Plexico Burress conversation. Plexico Burress, a Yancey Thigpen, Mike Wallace, George Pickens if he keeps it up. Like I think that's what we're talking about for wide receiver 6. Jay Smokin says, only difference is I would put Pouncey in that spot, me personally. At center, bro, Mike Webster's the greatest center in NFL history. I can't take him out. Like I want to put Pouncey on this so bad, but I can't take him out. And I can't put Pouncey at right guard over David DeCastro, who's an all-pro at right guard. And same thing with left guard and Alan Faneca. It's tough. It's really tough. Let's see here. The official Axel says, get Brown and Bell back on the squad. They've been trying to come back. Are you talking about in real life or on this squad? I was thinking about Bell, man. I really was. I was thinking about Bell running back. I can't take him over Franco Harris, though, man. We can't be disrespecting Franco Harris like that. Big game, primetime performer, literally a Super Bowl MVP, 9-time Pro Bowler, immaculate reception. Look at the playoff game logs. He stepped up, man. Like he was a big part of what made that offense go in the 1970s and what won those 4 Super Bowls. So we gotta stick with Franco, man. We got to stick with Franco. I don't think he's as talented as Le'Veon Bell, but is Hines Ward as talented as a Martavis Bryant? No, but it's not only just about talent. We need dudes that we can rely on and come through big whenever it's crunch time, it's clutch time, and all that. So that's why we're going with Franco, and that's why the offense is what the offense is right here. So let's go to defense. Defense was tough, man. Defense was really tough. I actually added another player on defense. I don't have 11. I actually went with 12. Because what are we doing? Are we running 3-4? Are we doing 4-3? There was just one name in particular I felt like needed to be added on the list. So I went 3 defensive linemen. Mean Joe Green, obviously the godfather of the Pittsburgh Steelers, the one that kind of started this whole thing, him and Terry Bradshaw and a bunch of those dudes. But it was Mean Joe Green. He was the draft pick in the late 1960s that kind of got the ball rolling here. And then Ernie Stautner, like this dude doesn't get talked about a lot with Steelers lore, but he was like that one player back in the 50s and 60s that was a bright spot because we know the Steelers weren't as good as they became in the 70s and what we know them to be right now. Like they struggled a little bit, but Ernie Stautner was the one bright spot. And you know how I mentioned with Franco Harris, we have 3 jersey numbers retired. Ernie Stautner is one of those. It's Mean Joe Green, Ernie Stautner, and Franco Harris. So like we have a ton of really good defensive linemen, but I don't know if anyone else outside of Mean Joe Green has reached the peak of being a player like Ernie Staudter did. He's like a 9-time Pro Bowler, all decades type of dude. So he's got to be on this defensive line, no doubt about it. But then I think you got to go with Big Snack. We need like a nose tackle. We need someone plugging up the middle here, and Casey Hampton. So I'm going with him. You could also be talking about LC Greenwood, Cam Hayward. So if we're running a 4-3, like we got to add either LC or Cam Hayward on this defensive line. But I didn't want to make this defensive list like 12 or 13 players or anything. I just added one extra name, and we'll get to him in a little bit here. But that's my top 3 on the D-line. Cam Hayward, LC Greenwood, obviously making this team. At linebacker, Jack Lambert, Jack Ham, like no one's beating them out. Like those are the 2 most obvious names that you're bringing up. And then TJ Watt, James Harrison, those are the outside guys. So like Lambert, Ham, those are off ball, the inside linebackers. TJ Watt, James Harrison, edge rushers. And then the name I just felt like I had to add was Greg Lloyd. You want him out there for this game. You want him out there with your lives on the line and the city on the line. You want Greg Lloyd. He's like Micah Parsons before Micah Parsons, arguably. Really, like he's the dude. He would come off the edge, but you had him at the inside. He was just all over the field. He was a menace, absolute menace. So like we need Greg Lloyd on this team. So if it's like a 4-3, that's the thing. If it's like a 4-3, man, I know I mentioned Cam Hayward and LC Greenwood in the 4-3, but I don't think you want them coming off the edge. You'd want James Harrison, TJ Watt off the edge. Your off-ball linebackers then would be like Greg Lloyd, Jack Ham, Jack Lambert. So there's many different combinations that you could use. I just feel like Greg Lloyd needed to have his name on this list in the top 12 for defense. Like no matter how you wanted to configure it, like Greg Lloyd, yeah, you want him out there. Like you want him out there playing significant snaps, I feel like, is what I'm trying to say. So TJ Watt, James Harrison, I guess the debate is for like edge rusher, because there's no debate for Jack Lambert or Jack Ham. Those are like the top 2 off-ball inside linebacker dudes. TJ Watt, James Harrison, or even like Greg Lloyd, the guys you may be able to put in place of any of them would be like a Joey Porter or a Kevin Green. I think Kevin Green's Steelers career was too short. It was only 3 years, and it was really, really damn good. And then Joey Porter, I just don't think he reached the heights of a James Harrison or a TJ Watt. TJ Watt's already there, man. Going back to what I said at the beginning of this show, TJ Watt's there. He holds the most stacks for any Steeler in our history, and he's still in his prime. He's got a depoy, and yeah, he's not going anywhere. I only expect him to be getting better, actually, because of all these Defensive Player of the Year snubs. Like, he's only going to be more motivated for 2024. So his career, yeah, he's in the thick of it, and I don't see him stopping anytime soon. The only thing that's missing from him is some hardware and some deep playoff success. But yes, we want him on this squad. We absolutely want him on this all-time squad. And then for the secondary, top 2 corners on the outside, Mel Blount, Rod Woodson. No debate there at all. That's pretty easy. Rod Woodson, between him and Deion Sanders, the best cornerbacks in the 1990s. So, yeah, he was in that conversation, either the number 1 or the number 2 cornerback during that time. Mel Blount, best cornerback in the league in the 1970s. Literally, the league changed rules on how the cornerbacks can play receivers because of Mel Blount. He would just ragdoll them, throw them to the ground. He was like the most physical cornerback that was out there. He's a Defensive Player of the Year, dude. So those are the easiest. I think, yeah, between them 2 at cornerback and then Jack Lambert and Jack Ham at linebacker, those are the easiest positions to fill right there. Like, just set it, forget it. There's really no conversation. And then Minkah Fitzpatrick and Troy Polamalu closing out the secondary at safety. Minkah, I think that's where a debate could come in, because we got Donnie Show. That's a Hall of Famer that you could slot in there. Carnell Lake. I think you're having Carnell Lake on this team, like in the top 11 range. It's probably like one of your top 12 or 13 players, because you're probably putting him in the slot. You can also have him play safety. Like, he's around there. But with Minkah, I think he's there already, man. I think he's there. Like, he's already got enough accolades at this point. I think Donnie Show is higher than Minka from a Steelers museum standpoint. But as an individual player and like the peaks that Minka has already reached, I would put him above Donnie Show. I think that tandem of Minka Fitzpatrick and Troy Polamalu would wreak havoc. That would be insane, actually. You have Polamalu just being all over the field, doing Polamalu type of things, and then Minka Fitzpatrick on the back end, just ball hawking. Like, that'd be insane. Because if you think about it, with Donnie Shell, he was a strong safety. I think maybe some of his skills would overlap Troy Polamalu too much anyway. So Minka Fitzpatrick would be the perfect complement for Polamalu. And it's not a shot at Donnie Shell. I just think Minka has literally been that good thus far in his career. Like, I don't know if he's not a Hall of Famer if he retired today, but he's like TJ Watt is on that type of pace. He's the best safety in the league. Now, I didn't put special teams on here. I didn't put kicker and punter. I think the chalk answer for kicker would be Gary Anderson, but I lean Jeff Reed. I'm not going to front. Show me Gary Anderson's ring. I lean Jeff Reed. And then for punter, I don't even know if we've had any amazing punters in Steelers history. Have we? From the research I was doing, I think the answer kind of leans towards Josh Miller. But that's what I'm thinking. Who would be kickoff return, man? Randall L? Or are we just putting AB back there? We'll probably just put AB back there for punt return, kick return guy. Because it's only for one game. It's not like we're trying to save AB for the whole season or anything. We need the most explosive players out there. Who's putting Mike Hilton over Blunt and Rod Woodson? Come on. He must be talking about for slot corner. But no, I would just put Ike Taylor in there at slot corner. I would put Ike Taylor. I would put like Carnell Lake. I already mentioned him because he could play safety. He could play corner. I think Carnell Lake would actually be a really good slot corner for this squad. If you wanted to really go back, like 1950s type of stuff, Jack Butler, the dude had like 50-something plus picks, and he was almost like a Carnell Lake. Hall of Famer, too. He played safety. He played cornerback. So Jack Butler, I would even put before Mike Hilton. Yeah, top 5 corners, I'd go Mel Blount, Rod Woodson, Carnell Lake, Jack Butler, and then, yeah, did I say Ike Taylor? Yeah, that would be the 5. Mel Blount, Rod Woodson, Ike Taylor, Carnell Lake, and then Jack Butler. Yeah, that would be the top 5 corners for me. JPJ, though, watch out, right? JPJ. Michael Romanowski, what about Lawrence Timmons? No, he ain't making the cut. I don't think he's even making the cut over, like, James Farrier. He's a good name, though. You also got, like, a Lavon Kirkland. I don't is Timmons making it even over Lavon Kirkland? Yeah, he's probably 5th or 6th on the list. Bailey BTW says, just tune in. Big Ben is a big swing, but I like it. No, it's not. It's just the right answer. It's the easy answer. Yeah, this defense is insane. Like, the names that we're leaving off. Like, the names that are making the roster but are left off of this top 12 right here. Cam Hayward, L.C. Greenwood. L.C. Greenwood should be in the Hall of Fame. Donnie Shell, a Hall of Famer. Joey Porter. Kevin Green. Kevin Green, one of the best edge rushers in NFL history. Like I said, the main reason he's not on it is because he spent only 3 years here with the Steelers. Like, just absolutely crazy. Lamar Woodley ain't here. Solo Jones, Larry Foote. I'd probably put Timmons over Foote. I'm taking Timmons over Foote. Connor Burt says, how are you going to skip over Ryan Clark like that? All right, fair. I think he deserves an honorable mention for safety. I'll give you that. G. Pickens 14's got Boswell in it, kicker. I like that. I'd probably take Boswell over Gary Anderson. Jeff Reed, though, he's got the hardware, man. Jeff Reed was clutch. If Boswell can win a Super Bowl here. Now, Boswell did come up clutch in that Kansas City playoff game where we scored all of our points off of field goals back in, what was that, like 2016? I do like Boswell. I think it's tough for me between Boswell and Reed. I do like Boswell. If Boswell can spend another 10 years here, I bet you he is going to be the answer when it's all said and done. if he can keep it up. Jason Gilden, that's a good name too. Kendrell Bell had a little bit of a run. Don't forget about him. Injuries derailed his career. Didn't he win Rookie of the Year? Oh, Shazier. Shazier. Ooh, for this scenario. Wow. I think he is. I think he's on this team. I would do Jack Ham, TJ Watt, Greg Lloyd, or I'm sorry, Jack Lambert, Jack Ham, Greg Lloyd, and then Shazier as like our inside off-ball linebackers for a 53-man roster. I think Shazier is the fourth guy. I would take him over Ferrier. I would take him just for the athleticism. Yeah, I think I'm taking Shazier. That's a good call. That's a really good call. I didn't even think of him. I like that. Who said that? That was I lost your comment. Sorry. Credit to whoever said that, though. Bailey BTW says, I take Hayward over Hampton, and I don't know off the top of my head, but I feel like there's no way we don't have someone better than Minka. Donnie Shell would be the other name. It would just be Donnie Shell. It'd be Donnie Shell or Carnell Lake, because Carnell Lake also did play safety. But Carnell Lake's making this team. He's just not high enough on my list to be on the graphics. We'll put it that way. Carnell Lake's like our slot corner / like third safety. But I think Minkah Fitzpatrick, he's got to be the starting free safety. I think he's got to be. Stella Nova says, I think Le'Veon over Franco. I was thinking the same thing, man. I was. Yeah, for those of you that popped in late, like the exercise I was doing here, because obviously this is the Steelers' all-time team and everything, but the perspective that I took, the angle that I took on this was that we have one game to save the city of Pittsburgh. There's like an alien invasion, and we got to put the best team together to win that game. Like, who do we want out on the field there tomorrow? Like, we're not going at this from a Steelers museum standpoint, a Steelers legacy standpoint. This is like, there's obviously going to be crossover. There's going to be carryover between the two, but I'm thinking more like, who do we want? Who's the dogs? Who do we want out there, man? Who do we want winning this game? Who do we want saving the city against the aliens? So this is what I came up with. Yeah, so like someone brought up, Bailey just said, I'd take Hayward over Hampton. I think maybe from that legacy perspective or that museum perspective, you could do Cam Hayward over Hampton. But I need a nose tackle. I need a dude clogging up the middle, and I think Hampton has that skill set that really no one else throughout Steelers history has. Think about it. Like, no one else is built like Casey Hampton. But Casey Hampton was also awesome. He's an awesome player, too. It's not like he was just a fat dude out there. No, he was incredible. Alchemist 79 says Bell over Franco. Agreed. I was thinking about Le'Veon Bell. I really was, but you got to go with Franco. I'm telling you got to go with Franco. The Le'Veon Bell answer is too short-sighted. You got to do some research on Franco. Like, I'm telling you, it's got to be Franco Harris. All right, I'm out of here, guys. This was a blast. See, I told you from the beginning, right? Like, we're at this point that we're talking about all-time teams and all-time rosters and everything. We're like this deep in the offseason. We're 2 weeks away from training camp. There's not much to talk about from a current standpoint, like a day-to-day news standpoint. But I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. I want to be talking about the all-time roster because this is fun as hell. This was a blast. I had a really good time. Thanks for stopping through. Thanks for chopping it up in the chat. This was, again, awesome. Awesome. I think I put together a great roster here. I think I did. I'm not having any debates. I'm not having any internal struggle on if anyone should be off the list and if I should put anyone else. I think this is the squad. Like, this is it. This is how I would go about it. I did mention some of the guys that I'd have in there for the depth if we're putting together a 53-man roster. But I think this is the starting crew. I think this is the cream of the crop. This is the top, I would say 22, but I put 23 names here. Deke, head coach. Jay Smogan says, Deke, you forgot to put head coach. It's got to be Chuck Noll. Like, come on. It's got to be Chuck Noll. Chuck Noll. What about offensive coordinator? Who's offensive coordinator? We know it's not Matt Canada. DC would be Dick LeBeau. Who's offensive coordinator? Todd Haley, probably. Todd Haley or Bruce Arians. Kicker, I said I'm going Jeff Reed. And then punter, I think Josh Miller. That seems to be the easy answer, or the answer that most people would say that I looked up. It doesn't seem like we had a great punter throughout our organization's history. But all right, I'm out of here. Again, this was fun. Stay chilling. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And peace.